Hi, my name is Shannon Percival, and this is a little bit about my cultural background. I grew up in the greater Sacramento area to a middle-class Caucasian family. I didn't have a whole lot of contact with my extended family, so growing up, it was mostly my parents, my sister, and I. We also had a lot of close ties with a law enforcement culture. My dad was a police officer, and so a lot of cops became our extended family to an extent. Church was a big part of my life growing up and a big part of my cultural upbringing. Both my parents were Baptists, and that played a big role in how they raised us. We both went to private Christian school. We were homeschooled for a little bit. And even when I started middle and high school, we attended a public charter school. And while it was public school, the majority of the kids there were Christian and raised in church as well. So we were pretty sheltered in that regard. Economically speaking, we did pretty well for ourselves. My dad worked and my mom stayed at home. He made enough as a police officer that we didn't really struggle financially, although we were a pretty frugal family. We didn't go off on lavish vacations, and my mom shopped at thrift stores, so we knew how to live pretty frugally. I was pretty sheltered from poverty, especially when we moved from Antelope, which is a kind of more of an inner city part of Sacramento, to Cameron Park, which is more of a suburb. They always did a great job of instilling a work ethic in me, however, and I got my first job when I was 14 and worked all throughout high school and college. So even though I was pretty safe from poverty, I always had a pretty strong work ethic. One of the biggest factors that kind of changed my upbringing, however, was college. When I started attending college, I was exposed to diversity of thought and experience for the kind of the first time in my life. After being surrounded by a lot of the same kind of people and people who looked like me for most of my life, being around people who thought very differently politically than my parents, different religiously than my parents, and who had a much different life growing up, really broadened my scope of my view of the world and grew a lot of compassion in me for other people. It also helped me overcome the fear of unknown. I had had a lot of people groups that I had been raised to believe that they were unsafe or to be fearful of them, and I did a lot of overcoming in that time when it came to what I thought of people different than me. And I found that I had a lot more in common with these people than I expected, and was able to grow a lot in that area. And so I am a huge advocate of college. I am going to be the first person to finish graduate school when I finish National University, and I'm very excited for that milestone to happen. So how have all of these factors affected the person I am today? In a lot of ways, actually. For one, I'm still Christian, though not in the same way I was raised. I'm definitely not identifying as Baptist and probably don't fit the stereotype of an American Christian, but that's okay because it's a Middle Eastern religion to start with, right? To this day, faith plays a huge role in my personal life, and I believe it makes me a more loving and compassionate person. Politically, I'm pretty balanced. I can find common ground with almost anyone, and I think that comes from having a very conservative family, but a lot of liberal friends in college. I don't hate either side because I don't see people groups as enemies. Usually both sides have something valuable to add to the conversation, so I consider myself somewhat middle road. And culturally, I have a lot to learn still. Because I spent so much of my older childhood and young teen years in a culturally homogenous society, there's still a lot I don't know about other people groups. But I hope that as I grow as a person and as I spend time out in the real world, that I will continue to learn from my own experience, but also the experience of others.